Hi everybody, this is your second video for today. I'm sorry if the last video looked like I was in a cave. I'm in my office, but the lights are motion censored and I guess I didn't move around enough and they shut off and I didn't realize it. So sorry if it's a little dark. You can still see the iPad, which is the important part. So other topic for today. Now this week when we meet on Wednesday, we are focusing on two different skills that we're adding to our toolbox. One is analyzing music with Roman numerals, which is what the last video kind of got you prepared for. And secondly, we are also going to start building our own very, very short chord progressions. Now, because that can be a sort of unwieldy task if I just throw it all at you, we are going to start by focusing on just two harmonies. For the entire week, we are going to be dealing only with 1 and 5. Now, really quick kind of terminology, just in case you are unfamiliar with it, I'm going to use the term 1 as in the 1 chord and the term tonic interchangeably. So when I refer to the tonic harmony or the tonic chord, I mean the 1 chord. Now, similarly, I will use the term 5 for the 5 chord and dominant interchangeably. So they also mean the same exact thing. So if that is new information for you, I just wanted you to get used to that sort of technical language. I will use those two terms in substitution for one another all the time. All right, so for today, you are going to need to have the 1 and 5 handout and the part writing rules handout. The part writing rules handout you don't have to have in front of you. I will project that on the screen and just highlight a few things. But the 1 and 5 handout that's in the week 4 folder on Blackboard, we are actually going to notate on that. So you might want to either have that or just have some staff paper to reproduce the little chord snippets that we're going to look at. So go ahead and grab those. I'm going to pull the first one up. So we're going to start with the handout on tonic and dominant, the 1 and 5 handout. Go ahead and grab that. I'll pull it up and we'll get rolling. Okay, now what you see in front of you is on the very top of the handout, and it is a piano reduction of a Bach chorale. We will go over this in way more depth in class on Wednesday, but there are a couple of things that I want to get out of the way now in terms of terminology, technicalities, things like that. When we talk about chorale texture, this piece actually in its original iteration was on 4 separate staff lines, and each of them were in different clefs. We have taken that and we've just reduced it into a piano type score. We refer to this as chorale style. You have 2 voices in what would be the right hand of the piano and 2 other voices in the left hand. And I will, over the course of the semester, refer to these voices as if we were referring to voice parts. So I'll refer to the top voice as the soprano, the second voice down, so the lowest voice in the right hand, as the alto, and then in the left hand, so on the bass staff, we'll have tenor, and the lowest voice, the bass voice. That is how I'll refer to those voices throughout the course of the semester. Now, notice that how this is notated, it's not kind of like the way you would see just a standard piano piece notated. The stems are notated in a way that makes it very clear that these are 4 distinct voices. So all of the alto stems are stemmed downward to make it distinct from the soprano, which is stemmed upward, and likewise tenor stems go up, bass stems go down. So it doesn't matter that this first bass pitch is in a position on the staff where it would normally be stemmed upward. Because it's the bass voice, we're stemming it downward regardless of where on the staff it actually lies. Couple other little things when I refer to outer voices. I mean the outermost voices, bass and soprano. So you'll hear me talk about the outer voice counterpoint and things. I mean the bass and soprano relationship. Likewise, when I refer to inner voices, I mean the alto and the tenor. That gets that all kind of out of the way. Now, why did I show you this? First off, we'll spend some time with it in class on Wednesday doing a couple of different fun things. But this chorale texture is also how we are going to notate our own progressions for the course of the semester and all the way on through your Theory 2 and 3 lives. Okay, now before we jump to the bottom part of the page, which is the fun stuff, we have to get a sense of the rules for this type of part writing. Now, similar to counterpoint, the rules look really overwhelming at first. So I've gone through the part writing rules handout and I've highlighted the things that are most important right now. Now, this part writing handout is going to be applicable for all of the part writing we do all semester, and that's going to include when we start adding sevenths to chords, when we start adding new chords in, so we're not always just going to write with 1 and 5, right? We're going to start adding new people in, and some of these rules are more applicable to those situations. So I went through and just highlighted what I want you to focus on right now, between now and class on Wednesday, and even through Friday, because we're only dealing with 1 and 5. The first thing is spacing. Now, there is a vocal range handout on Blackboard for you to take a look at and just keep on the back burner. The big thing with spacing is that you have to be cognizant of your upper 3 voices. At no time can you have more than an octave between neighboring voices. So soprano and alto have to be an octave or closer, and alto and tenor have to be an octave or closer to one another. The one exception is the bass has free reign to do whatever it wants. So the bass can be further than an octave from the tenor, and that is okay. It plays by its own set of rules in terms of that. So your spacing has to stay within an octave. An octave is okay, no bigger than an octave. On the contrary end of that, the voices can also never cross. They can meet. So you can have alto and tenor on a unison, but then they got to go in opposite directions, with the alto going up and the tenor going down. Voices can never cross one another. Now let's talk about spelling. For right now, since we're only dealing with 1 and 5, I want every single triad to be complete. And by complete, I mean you've got all 3 triad members. You've got roots, you've got a third, you've got a fifth. Now notice I said roots plural. Again, just for what we're doing right now, I want 2 roots in every triad. So every 1 and every 5 for the next class or 2, you will have 2 roots in every single one of those triads. Moving forward, then we're going to get in some situations where you may double other people or even omit a chord member. But for right now, every triad you spell for me is going to have 2 roots, a third, and a fifth. We are leaving nobody out, and we are doubling the root for the next couple of classes. Now let's talk about voice leading. This may seem like it's completely different than the counterpoint that we did all last unit, but actually it is very, very similar. We're just dealing with some extra stuff in the middle. Your outer voices, so again, when I say outer voices, I mean soprano and bass. For the most part, they are going to exhibit what would be good counterpoint. So if you remember that counterpoint in context video where we reduced a couple of pieces of Brahms and some excerpts from the Goldberg variations, we kind of whittled them down to form a backbone that exhibited good counterpoint. That's what you really ultimately want from your soprano and your bass. You want them to interact with good counterpoint. Now, for what we're going to be doing for right now, we're going to be spelling tonic and dominant and moving them from one to the other. I want you to be as economical as possible. And by that, I mean your voices are going to move by step. You are going to move as little as possible. Think about expending as little energy as you can from voice to voice. Likewise, if there is a common tone, and you will see that there will be one, keep it. So if you've got a shared note between chord A and chord B, I want you to keep that note in that voice. There's no need to move it right now. We're going to try and keep this, again, as smooth and economical as possible. You will have plenty of time in the next 3 semesters to get creative with your voice leading. For right now, let's just focus on spelling the triads properly and moving them in ways that don't break any like red flag rules. Now, one of those red flag rules is if you have scale degree 7, what we also refer to as the leading tone, in an outer voice, is got to go to 1 when you're moving from 5 to 1. So this last little section here is specific to 5 to 1 motion. So when you build your 5 chord, you're going to have a scale degree 7 in there. If it's in an outer voice, so bass or soprano, it needs to be going to 1 in the next chord. If it's in an inner voice, you can move it somewhere else. For right now, we're going to still move it to 1 because that's going to help us maintain the doubling that we want. But know that if you have scale degree 7 in an inner voice, so in your alto or in your tenor, you can move it to somewhere else that's not 1. But for right now, we're going to keep it real simple, and 7's going to go to 1. I think that is all that is super, super important for right now. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing with this handout that I asked you with all of the counterpoint handouts, which is read it over between now and when I see you on Wednesday. And if you have any questions, bring them to class. If there's something you don't understand, if you just have a question about, hey, when would this maybe happen? I'm not sure why I would need to know this. Bring them to class on Wednesday because we won't go too much deeper into this handout on Wednesday unless you direct me to. We will continue coming back to it in the next couple of weeks as certain bullet points become more relevant. Okay, so you've got all the rules in front of you. They are way more applicable when you actually try and put your pencil to a piece of paper and make some stuff happen. So let's go back to the 1 and 5 handout. And we are going to build some triads. Now, I am going to walk you through, like for some of you this might be obnoxiously slowly, but I am going to walk you through a step-by-step process for building these triads and making the chord progression. Then I'm going to kind of cut you loose to do the D minor progression on your own, and we'll see how you do. But for right now, you are going to get the very methodical preparation for these chord progressions. So let's see what we have going on. I'm looking at the F major progression. I gave you Roman numerals underneath so you can see that we are going from 1 to 5 to 1. There are no figures, so everything is in root position, and you could tell that by the bass notes as well. Let's go ahead and start building. Now the first thing you need to know is who is in a 1 chord in F major. You can think about this in 100 different ways. You could think about it on a keyboard. I'm going to spell an F major triad on a keyboard. These are the 3 notes that are in it. You can think about it on your instrument if it is not the keyboard. How would I play an F major triad on my instrument? You can think about it on scale degrees. That is where I'm going to start, and then we'll feed letter names in as we go. So if we're talking about a 1 chord in any key, if we're talking about scale degrees, our 1 chord is going to have a 1, a 3, and a 5. So in F major then, that means we are dealing with F, skip G, go to A, skip B flat, go to C. Now, since we are in root position, we want to double the root. So that means we are going to have two Fs in this chord. We already have one in the bass. We need another one. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the soprano. So we're going to have a soprano up here with F. So now both of my Fs are taken care of. Good to go. I need an A somewhere. I need a C somewhere. Now I have to be careful with spacing. My soprano is on the higher end of its range, right? So I cannot go and put my alto there. Why? Because now I have more than an octave between my soprano and alto. So I've got to be careful what I do with my alto. Likewise, if I put my alto here, it's fine in terms of range against my soprano, but then that leaves me in a really bad position for where I'm going to put the tenor pitch, right? Because then I need an A in the tenor, and here is going to be too low because now I've got more than an octave between my tenor and alto. But if I try and give it that A with like a million ledger lines, that's way out of range. So my only other option then really is to put my alto here. So that gets rid of my A. And then I can put my tenor on that C. And now I have a sixth between my alto and my tenor, and another sixth between my alto and soprano. The bass is way down here, but the bass is allowed to do that. So from a doubling perspective, we're good because we have two roots. From a spacing perspective, we're good. We are within an octave between all of our individual upper voices. All right, now let's go ahead and spell the 5 chord. So again, in any key ever, your 5 chord in terms of scale degrees is going to have 5. Going to go up a third, so skip 6, go to 7. And up another third, so skip 1, go to 2. 5, 7, and 2. And if you have not started singing chord progressions yet in Scales 1, you will eventually. You'll sing them on scale degrees, and this will become second nature to you. Now, that means in terms of actual letter name pitches, scale degree 5 in F is C, skip D, go to E, skip F, go to G. There is our dominant triad. No sevenths yet. I know at least one of you is itching to put a seventh on this. No sevenths yet. Give me like 72 hours, and then you can start putting sevenths on your 5 chords. But for right now, triads only. Okay. Again, this is in root position. You already have the C in the bass. We do need one more because we want to double the root. Now I'm going to draw your attention to something that is going to happen every single time you have a 1 to a 5, or vice versa, 5 to a 1. They share a scale degree, and they share scale degree 5. Because of that, and because of where we are in our trajectory of learning this, aka we are in the first half hour of 3 more semesters of this, we are going to keep that common tone. And what I mean is you're going to find where the C is in your tonic triad, which is in the tenor voice, and you are going to keep it. So that tenor voice is going to stay on the same note because it is shared between both harmonies. And we've taken care of both of our C's now. So we need an E and we need a G. If you look at our upper 2 voices, again, we want to be super economical. We are moving people by step or keeping the same note. That means our only real solution is that we move the soprano down to E, we move the alto down to G. And now our resolution. Don't overcomplicate this. We just came from 1 chord. There's a pretty good possibility that we can go back to it the same way that we got there. It's not always going to work like that, but for right now, there's a pretty good chance. Let's keep this common tone again. So anyone who sings alto or tenor, in choir, you live this life. You just maybe hadn't realized it. We tend to just sit sometimes for a while. So this is why. So we're going to keep the tenor on the same note again. Now, one thing I want to draw your attention to is, let's go back to our scale degree brains. The soprano, as it is right now, is on scale degree 7. And the soprano is an outer voice. And what do we remember from our part writing handout? Outer voices, if you have scale degree 7, it has to go to 1. So because of that, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that soprano has to go to F. And that leaves us with only one option for the alto, and that is for the alto to go back to A. So there you have it. There is your full progression. I don't know how the sound is going to be on this, but hey, I'll go ahead and try it. So the bass is an octave up because my hands aren't that big. But here you go. There's your 151. Okay. Now what I'd like you to do is try the next one on your own. I'm going to build the tonic with you. So I'm going to build the starting harmony with you, and then cut you loose to do the dominant and the resolution on your own, and then come back and see if we have the same stuff. So let's build our 1 chord. Now we're in D minor, so same key signature, but different tonic. So D minor then, our 1 chord is still going to be built off of scale degrees 1, 3, and 5. And in D minor, that means D, skip E, go to F, skip G, go to A. Because we are in root position, there are no figures on the Roman numerals, so we are in root position. That means that D is going to be in the bass. And let's use this D. And I'm going to put us in a different configuration. So we started out the last time with scale degree 1 in the soprano. I'm going to give us a different configuration this time because the voice leading will look a little bit different. It'll be in different voices. So let's go ahead and let's put scale degree 5 in the soprano. Okay, so you got scale degree 5 in the soprano, scale degree 3 in the alto, and the other tonic is in your tenor. Now what I would like you to do is go ahead and work out the rest of the progression. So you're going to move this tonic triad to the dominant, and then move the dominant back to tonic. There is one, seems minor, but is actually a big, big deal, issue with the minor progressions that I need you to be aware of. And that is, if you take a look at this 5 chord, you will notice that the quality is major. Now, if you didn't watch a triads video, we talked a little bit about how when you're in a minor key, you can build triads off of the natural minor key, the natural minor scale, or the harmonic minor scale. And one of the big things we talked about was when you're building the dominant, when you're building the 5 chord in minor, if you want it to be major quality, you have to perform an alteration. That alteration is that you have to raise the leading tone. And by that, I mean raise scale degree 7 in your 5 chord. So wherever you put scale degree 7 in this progression, we're in D minor, so scale degree 7 will be C. You're going to have to raise it by a half step. That is going to give you a major quality 5 chord. If you forget to raise it, then your 5 chord is going to be minor. And that has a lot of implications for the cadence. So raise your leading tone when you build your 5 chord. Go ahead and work out the rest of this progression. So pause the video, work it out. And then when you come back, I'll have mine spelled out and we'll compare notes. Okay, so a couple of things. Because we built the first chord together, our answers should be almost identical. And by almost, I mean the only thing that could potentially be different is that you may have decided to go up there for your 5 chord for the bass. That's fine. It doesn't cross the tenor. It doesn't create any issues in other areas, so that is absolutely okay. Other thing I want you to just be sure of is make sure that you have a sharp on that C. So that needs to be a C sharp. If it is a C natural, you just built me an A minor triad, which is beautiful and we love it, but it does not correspond to the Roman numeral because the Roman numeral is telling us that that 5 chord needs to be major. Because we had scale degree 5 in the soprano, that means that now the soprano gets the job of common tone, and it's just gonna hang out. Your alto then went F to E and then back up to F, and your tenor went D to C sharp, hopefully, and then back up to D. Again, this is scale degree 7 in your tenor voice. Like I said, for right now, we're bringing 7 to 1, doesn't matter where it is. In another week or so, you'll get a little leeway with potentially bringing 7 elsewhere if it's in an inner voice. But for right now, 7's going to go to 1. And that also gives you a nice doubled root in your final tonic triad, and you have a 3rd in the alto and a 5th in the soprano. Now, if you came back and you had exactly what I had, or you had that alternative green A in the bass, but everything else was the same, good to go. We will continue working on this in class on Wednesday, and on Friday, I think, we actually get to add 7ths into our 5 chord. So if you've got questions and or if you're confused by any of the part writing rules, please bring those questions and confusions to our synchronous lecture on Wednesday. That's what I'm here for, to answer your questions. All right, thank you guys, and I will see you on Wednesday.